In this next section of problems, you might not have a direct path to your answer, so we have to take the information we're given and see what we can do with it. In this case, we're given that the fourth term is 80 and the common ratio is 4, and what I want is an expression for the nth term. So let's take a closer look at this fourth term, 80. How do we make 80? Since it's the fourth term of a geometric sequence, we're going to start with the first term, which I don't know, multiply it by the common ratio, which I do know is 4, and raise that to the n minus 1th power. Well, the n is the 4, so n minus 1 would be 3. Well, real quickly, we should be able to find out that 4 to the 3rd power is 64. So to get rid of that, we just divide and get 80 over 64, which should simplify down to 5/4. That's our first term. That's not our answer. That's just our first term. What we're asked to do is come up with an expression for the nth term, which is the first term times the common ratio to the n minus 1th power. But we have everything we need. I know what my first term is. We just found it. It's 5/4. I know what the common ratio is. We were given that as 4. And the power then will be n minus 1. So there's my expression for the nth term. Next, let's find the sum of this infinite series. Before we can do that, we have to make sure that it's going to be convergent, which means it has to be geometric, and the common ratio has to be less than 1. So to find out if it's geometric, we have to look at the common ratio. So what do we multiply 729 by to turn it into 243? And we can check that by taking the second term and dividing it by the first. If we plug that in a calculator, we see the 0.333 repeating. Now, just because that's a nice number doesn't mean that everything's all hunky-dory. We have to see if that common ratio holds. So we go on to the next two terms, the 243 and the 81, and we check out that ratio of the second term divided by the first. And 81 divided by 243 is 0.333 repeating. So now we can say that we do have a geometric series, and we know that the common ratio, being a third, is less than 1. That's all good news for us, because now we can find that infinite sum by using our formula. That formula where we take the first term and divide it by 1 minus the common ratio. So it's 729 over 1 minus our common ratio, which we just found was 0.3 repeating, or 1/3. So to simplify that, we've got 729 divided by 2/3. Go ahead and grab your calculator if you want to, and you should get 1093.5. Let's try one more summation in sigma notation. First step, as always, is to write out the first few terms. So I'm going to take 2 and plug it in for w. So negative 6 times 3/4 to the 2 minus 1. Well, 2 minus 1 is 1. 3/4 to the first is 3/4. Negative 6 times 3/4 is negative 4.5. Now do it again. Well, I can see just by looking at the expression, I got a1 times common ratio to the n minus 1. That just means I'm going to keep multiplying by this 3/4. So negative 4.5 times 3/4 is negative 3.375. And multiplying by 3/4 again, we get negative 2.53125. And we should keep on going until we get to the 9th term. That is negative 6 times 3/4 to the 9 minus 1, or the 8th power. When you plug that all in, you should get negative 0.600677490. It gets pretty big. Anyway, like we said, we know this is a geometric series, so we can use our geometric formula, which says that we take the first term. In this case, that was negative 4.5 minus negative 4.5 times common ratio, and in the denominator we got 1 minus common ratio. Our common ratio is going to be that 3/4. So I'll plug that in right here, 3/4 and 3/4. Then we have to figure out the power. All right, the power is going to be the number of terms that we have, and that's going to come from our sigma notation. If we start at the second term and go to the 9th term, to find out how many terms that is, we subtract 9 minus 2 and add 1. 9 minus 2 is 7, 7 plus 1 is 8. Now we have our whole expression, which we can just plop right into the calculator. And if everything's done right, you should end up with negative 16.197.